Okay, we've got another superb panel on this important topic. So first up, Del Bigtree himself. And we have Dr. Peter McCullough. Dr. Peter McCullough. Dr. Vibeke Manish. And Professor Dr. Sukarit Bhakti. And Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger. And Professor Dr. Angus Dalgleish. Professor Matthias Desmet. And of course, Andrew Bridgen. We got everyone, yeah. So yeah, I got heavily into excess mortality in the initial pandemic. It's probably how I made my name. I went through all the data and shared it. We might briefly go back to look at the absolute lack of curiosity around the lack of excess mortality during the actual terrifying pandemic. So, like, journalists are wordy people, but they're generally innumerate in my mind. But many journalists knew that the numbers were within a bad flu envelope, but no one said a word. So maybe just a first quick round on, who was driving this narrative that there was huge mortality from the COVID flu. So maybe Del, I don't know, you might kick it off.
Well, I can just speak as a journalist. What I found curious was the fact that they changed how they determined a death in America. Suddenly, where if you're a cancer patient, you're dying of cancer, then they said, well, if you had COVID, no, let's make it you died of COVID. And that simple adjustment is not only troubling, it absolutely contaminates all of your death data so that there's no way to figure out were these, vulnerabilities, was it actually COVID, was it, a conspiring factor? We don't know. So when your government goes out of the way to make its data less accurate, you suddenly have to be incredibly curious. And so all I've done with the high wire is just point out all the red flags and things where we didn't act the way you normally would. It defied reason. Science should want to have the most amount of detail, all the reasons the person was in the hospital. Did they show up with the virus? And of course, we've all talked about it. It happened all around the world. Dying with COVID meant you died from COVID. Car accidents, cancer, all of those things, none of that weighed in. So we will never actually know. I think it's almost impossible to determine how many were actually COVID deaths. Of course, flu disappeared. Then there was incentives on why they did all those things and payments. So we made a mess of our data on purpose. That says to me, I'm just going to guess, someone was trying to hide something.
And indeed, that mess would make the subsequent true excess mortality be less clear. Absolutely. Does anyone else want to come and say on where that came from, what Del said, the definition of death?
Well, I'm in practice. I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. I practice internal medicine and cardiology in the United States. So I had a patient die during the pandemic in 2020. And I went through the process of reviewing the death, talking to the doctors, getting all the results, and the autopsy, the death certificate. I was responsible for the death certificate. That process from the time it happened, the time he died, to the time I finalized the death certificate was 6 weeks. Now the question is, how did that meter on TV, how did that change every day? And what Del said is completely correct. The definition was changed to be PCR test positive at any time and death at any time, and then it was ascertained to be death due to SARS-CoV-2 infection. And in our National Center for Health Statistics, of the 1.2 million Americans who died PCR test positive, half of those records have no mention of pneumonia and no abnormalities on chest X-ray or CT. None. So right there, you can take that 1.2 million and cut it to 600,000. When carefully adjudicated, and this has been done in a few regions in the United States, the answer is, of real COVID deaths, it's about 10%. in the United States. There's a paper from Italy where it's 3% of deaths. So in the United States, the most broad estimate would be 120,000 deaths. A bad flu season could be 70 or 80,000 deaths. And as Del mentioned, because COVID, when that was test positive, it drove the hospital reimbursement. Influenza testing was essentially not done.
Yep, absolute corruption.
That's what happened.
We had a poor doctor in Ireland who passed away. He was very overweight, a heart attack, and posthumously, I believe, there was a positive PCR. So it was a COVID death. Just on Sweden, because it was an obsession of mine. So Sweden had, from WHO figures, I think nearly 18 months worth of the big pandemic period, 0.05% excess death. And they had no lockdowns, no masks, and kids in school. UK, with the same aged demographic, had 0.11%, nearly double. And we know from many graphs that the deaths you had just correlated with your age and demographic, basically, understandably. So, maybe comment on the vilification of Sweden, if anyone wants to pick that one up who hasn't spoken already. It was quite extraordinary.
Well, I'm not from Sweden, I'm from Denmark, but we didn't have any excess mortality when you had the corona in 2020. But actually the excess mortality started in May 21. And I was like, I expected that when they had the lockdown. I said within 1.5 years we will have excess mortality in Denmark, because you lock down, you close the hospital and you send people home, and the diagnosis will be too late. And if we didn't doubt that, why have the health system? Why have the hospitals? But I was wrong, because it didn't take 1.5 years. It took only 1 year and 2 months, and then we had excess mortality. And what I think was the scary part is that it's literally started on the same date in many European countries. So it's like, what happened? It's like we were hit by something, and that was the lockdowns and for sure the vaccines. I mean, that's not anything for doubt any longer. And I think that, I mean, we have the data, but what I think is the most important part is that we need the transparency of data. We need to get access to those data. We need, like in the UK, they have the discussion not to give out the data. I mean, that's an urge for the public health, for everyone, from the one we love mostly. We need to have the data. So transparency is very important. And also to reflect and analyze, why did people die May 21 in all over Europe? Why did they die? I think that's the question to ask the governments and the authorities who lied to the people.
Well said. I see Andrew there gagging to get in on this question.
Yes, COVID-19 was this amazing pandemic where 99.8% of people survived. Does anybody know anybody who died of COVID-19 at home?
No.
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 Everyone died of COVID-19 in hospitals and old people's homes. Ladies and gentlemen, that's because they were euthanized by the state. In the UK, it was midazolam and morphine, NICE Guideline 163, signed off by the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, on the 3rd of April 2020. Twin-track approach. If you stop at home until your lips turn blue, come to hospital, and then we'll kill you. If you're young, we'll kill you with a ventilator. 85%... And if you're considered unfit to be ventilated, we just put you on end-of-life drugs, and no one survived that. In America, it was remdesivir. I can't believe no one in America is asking about the scandal of how remdesivir, a drug they tested on Ebola patients in Africa to know that it was going to kill people before they used it on American citizens. A few MPs were willing to say the word COVID-19 vaccines. Nobody was willing to talk about midazolam and morphine except for me, because that is absolute murder of the vulnerable elderly. And I would say that average age in UK of death after being diagnosed with COVID-19 was 18.3 days. all virus illnesses burn out after 7 days. They didn't die of COVID-19. They died of side effects, probably bacterial pneumonia. If they'd been treated with normal antibiotics, as we would have done, they would have survived.
Right.
They wanted the deaths. They wanted that on the death certificate. And the statistics were twisted so much. A Muslim family came to me. You'll know in the Muslim faith and the Jewish faith, they have to bury the bodies after death within 24 hours. Grandfather had fallen down the stairs and broken his neck, 84. The doctor would only sign off the birth certificate and release the body for burial if they had COVID-19 put on the death certificate. And they agreed, because they wanted the body. They agreed, and that's another COVID death.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Sukarit, I saw you respond very, very aggressively there to Andrew's words. Perhaps a few words on what you identified with there.
All right. Now listen. They are trying to resist exposure about these deaths. Dell said they have something to conceal. I will go one step further. They are afraid. They fear that when this is exposed, and it is already exposed, they are in for it. They are in for it. Seriously, there is nothing to protect them because they have committed murder.
Yeah.
They have committed murder. And the murder was committed with the agent that they propagated, advertised, and sold to the public as safe and efficacious against something that is going to kill you, but that does not kill you. So, they're in a difficult position, and I don't want to be in their shoes. I don't want to be in their shoes. I don't want to be in anyone's shoes because everything is laid out on the table. The whole thing was planned, hoaxed, and the greatest crime, organized crime, against humanity.
Yeah.
Against humanity. I am going to end now by saying that a book that I have edited with Helmut Sturz, who is the author of The Impf Mafia, the book is already on the market. Our book is going to appear in 7 days, and the book is entitled mRNA Vaccines. We use the word vaccines because we wanted to speak out to everyone. The greatest organized crime against humanity. And there we have laid out why these guys, these politicians, are now bibbering with fear, completely correctly, because they are endangered. Nothing can save them from prosecution if they do not turn back and say, we're sorry, we didn't know. We didn't know this. And no, they have a last chance now. They have a last chance. And we have laid down in this book why they have a last chance. Because the last discoveries that prove that the whole thing was manufactured, fraudulent hoax, using the wrong process that was never authorized, using bacterial plasmids that were criminal. This makes the manufacturers immediately liable. And as Peter McCullough and his team, and also our team, and of course Kevin McKernan, in 3 publications since November last year, published, it is now clear that these are causing cancer, that they are causing the production of poisons that are so horrible, you can't think about it. And it's all down in the literature. So I think that the important thing now is to move ahead, and we've been talking, Del, how to go ahead. Because now is the time for the world to return to justice.
Yep.
Return
Very
to
good.
justice.
Well, Angus and then Matthias. Angus, perhaps a word on the appalling vista of the excess mortality since the COVID scam. What do you think? You've been deeply embedded in that.
Well, first of all, it's everywhere. And I've looked at the figures for America where they have tried to massage, to prevent it going up by, I don't know what they call it, but I call it massaging the figures, delaying the figures. So the excess deaths of a year, they suddenly decide that could be a blip. So they want to average it over 3 or 4 years, but still they get this. The worst thing you need to know is our own British government stopped allowing the Office of National Statistics to release our mortality figures. It went to High Court. It's 2 years now. And they went to the High Court, and the High Court came down on the side of the government. And the reason given, they didn't want to release the figures because it might upset so many people who'd had the vaccine. I mean, what is the point? And they've just told us why. And we know exactly what went on and what happened. And I'd just like to make a couple of other comments with regards to you got a diagnosis of COVID. I know people who were kept in hospital. They were tested every day until they were positive, then they had COVID put on their sheet, and they went home to die of cancer or whatever. It was absolutely appalling. It was fraud in plain sight. And also, we now know, if you do PCR, which does not detect live vaccine, it detects a sequence, which could easily, and often is, a dead virus that you've had. It's only reliable around 35, 37 cycles. They deliberately said, just to be sure, whack it up to over 40, 45. Well, people rapidly learn that even drinking orangeade would give you a positive, definite positive COVID test. So all the school kids were having orangeade, getting a positive test and going, great, we're off for the day. I mean, this is how much manipulation that there was. Gaming.
Thank you, Angus. And Matthias? That sounds kind of like a mass formation scenario to me. What do you reckon?
Well, when I am at university, I notice that almost everyone is still believing the corona narrative 100%. So, it's much, much, much worse than that those people are conceding something. They still refuse to see something. They still refuse to see all the new evidence. Nobody should forbid them from investigating excess mortality. They don't dare to investigate it because by now their identity is fully dependent on that narrative. And that, of course, this doesn't hold for everyone. There are people who are conceding things, but like the majority of the people in academia just refuse to see it. They continue to believe 100% in it. That's just because the higher the level of education, as I said before, the lower, the more they fall prey to collective mass belief in hypnosis. Because education, on the one hand, I think, on the one hand, selects usually the most conformist people. People who want this degree are usually the people who have this urge, this need to conform to social ideals and ideal images. And on the other hand, it also learns them think, not on their own. It learns them to think all in the same way, according to the mainstream view of man in the world. So you have a very special set of people there at university. People who are on the one hand highly intelligent, but very conformist, and extremely vulnerable for expert blindness. Expert blindness is something we should investigate because it's so important. Experts, like the only one who didn't know where he had to put De Bruyne in the Belgian football team was the coach. Everyone else knew it. Everyone else knew it. But the coach didn't know it. Yeah, anyway,
Thank you, Matthias. Absolutely, the academics, I mean, sheep is not the word. Astrid, didn't catch you, but in a general sense, this topic of, I guess, post-pandemic excess death, which is much more impressive than the in-pandemic.
Well, yeah, I first want to say that excess mortality is very important because it is justification of a pandemic. And the definition of an epidemic in science is that you have more deaths than a normal year and more sickness of the same symptoms. So they have lied the narrative, and that's the first thing why they did not investigate, because Professor Ioannidis, around the end of the year, proved that there is no excess mortality, except in some region like Lombardy, and it was more regional, and it is linked to the 5G, actually, in some public health studies. And then if you compare scientifically in public health, you do comparison of SARS-CoV-1 and SARS-CoV-2. I made an article in May 2020 in Acta Biomedica, and you can calculate death rates at the end of a story, not in the story. So what the WHO came up with in 2002, 2003 with SARS-CoV-1, a coronavirus, a common flu, is that it was 787 deaths. And this took 8 months to cover 26 countries. So whatever it is, a pathogen, if it's a coronavirus, it takes time to go from one border to the next, and it mutates. So, for example, Iceland had found in 2020 that there were 300 mutations of the virus. Professor Raoult found that there were so many mutations that in September there was no virus. So, I mean, everything was a lie, and this justification of deaths was the definition of a pandemic. An epidemic is a pandemic if you put the countries together. And they changed the pandemic definition to say it's anything that crosses a border. And that's the first really big lie. You cannot count that in epidemic. And they went so quickly.
We've got an epidemic of illegal migrants in my country.
Yeah, but they replenish the deaths. You see immigrants in demography. I've worked a lot in demography and aging. Well, when people die, you take immigrants, and then you flatten the curve, and you cannot see it from the population perspective. So there is a two-step excess mortality. There is no mortality the first year, and they had to justify to lock down people, and they have to justify that they're going to roll out a vaccine. So they had to create a lie, if you put yourself in their shoes. And the second year, you can see excess mortality, and I have numbers. I made a paper for the judge of France on that, and it's never been on the dangerosity of vaccine. And this is a scandal, is that in 2021, in October, VAERS counted, it was at 17,128 deaths. This is 3 times more than any data in the whole United States. 3 times more. This research, clinical research, open surf, should have stopped then. And this is again something about never talked about, and now they're changing their data and they're censoring backwards the data. So we have to keep the data. So in the United States it is there, and ultravigilance, that's the European 7 countries, it's 29,000 deaths. And in UK it's 1,700 in October 2021. So this is excess deaths from a vaccine. And this is very important for any research. It's also in the unbearable truth.
For the law.
Yeah. Inconvenient truth, sorry.
It's unbearable. Too.
just for context.
And wait, and I want to say it's not just deaths. It's disabled, irreversibly disabled. 34,000 irreversible, and then there are children in that, and then I don't want to break down all the numbers, but this is unacceptable, unbearable, and it's the definition of a crime.
Thank you.
Thank you, Astrid.
Just for context, in 1976 in America, they pulled the swine flu vaccine off the market for 12 associated deaths in the whole of the country.
Yeah.
What's the difference now? Is the amount of money behind these mRNA treatments?
No, it's the fear.
And, of course, the swine flu, I was going around because I looked into the swine flu, and at the start of COVID, I said, here we go, swine flu 2. And I tried to tell people, but people have forgotten. People are like goldfish. It's tragic. Like, swine flu failed because the media covered that not enough people were dying. But they worked very hard during the intervening 15 years to make sure, or 12 years, that didn't happen again. I believe we're coming to the end of the panel. Maybe any last urgent comments someone would like to give, but then we have Q&A. Or will we go straight into Q&A and get the wisdom of the audience?
Yeah.
Okay, Q&A, I think. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Oh. Do we have our microphone man?
Where is he?
Is it my turn?
Hey, I'll just say one thing while you're getting ready there. Just a blast from the past. What I saw I'm pretty sure it was March 2020, the CEO of YouTube came out and they said, oh, we're in a really dangerous pandemic and ooh, it's terrible. So they put a list of things you'd lose your video for, get a strike, maybe lose your account. You know what one of them was? And I spotted it. I said, wow. They said, if anyone compares COVID in any way to influenza. So they actually banned us from making comparisons, the biggest of which would be, of course, excess death. So they knew. Sorry, Flavio.
Yeah. Time for questions. So I have to squeeze myself into this. Please stand up.
Hi, my name is Kees. I think we all violently agree in this panel, in this room, on this topic. What I'm wondering, do any of you see a tipping point at one point where the common public will actually recognize all the stuff we're talking about? Because that's what concerns me. I see all the same faces that I see on Substack, on our alternative channels, and so on and so on. It's a very limited group, actually, us. So do you see any tipping point at one point?
First of all, we're never going to get a greater tipping point than the pandemic itself. If you're waiting for a tipping point beyond that, then go ahead and just throw yourself off a cliff. I don't know what you're waiting for. And the point that we were just in Guernsey at an event there the other day, and I discovered that the UK says that 30% of people did not get the vaccine in the UK. That's roughly about the same number as America. In fact, across the world, it looks like there was about a 70% vaccine uptake. That means that 30% of the world rejected this vaccine under the greatest pressure, the most propaganda that we have ever seen. We're too used to thinking of that as a small number. That is a massive number because it has no apathy in it whatsoever. It means that those people rejected, stood their ground no matter what, all alone. Our problem was we weren't talking to each other. Our problem was we weren't finding out that 3 out of 10 of our neighbors were all making the same decision. When they were threatening our jobs, we never would have lost them if we'd have talked to the other employees and then walked together as the 30% and said, we're walking out of this business if you force us to vaccinate. That's what we told people to do in America, and the ones that did it kept their jobs. 30% moves mountains. Now imagine how many of the people, the 70% got the vaccine, would never have gotten it except for the pressure, that gave into the pressure, gave into the coercion, and gave into the guilt. You have to imagine then that's at least 50% of that remaining group, which means it's not a small group. 50% of this world, I believe, would never have gotten that vaccine, did not believe in that vaccine, but we let them get away with it because they made us afraid to talk to each other. And if you're waiting for a tipping point, it's not going to come if you don't start talking. You are the change.
Let me ask a show of hands of you in the audience. How many of you in the audience know someone in your circle who's been injured, disabled, or has died due to the COVID-19 vaccine? Let's show a hand.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's your answer. We are beyond the tipping point. The answer is among you. It really is. As you go out and talk to others in the way you can, that's how the tables turn.
I had a funny thought today. I want this to come across the right way, but based on what you just said. We all have seen, remember the TV series where the government, everything, the aliens had taken over the world, but we were slowly just seeing little glimpses of their lizard skins and things like that? How would you be acting right now if you knew that your government and all these people that were manipulating the data and were injecting you with something that was killing you off, if you knew they were aliens, if you knew that our nation, the world had been invaded by a force that was out for your end and your demise, would you be acting the same way you are today? I want you to think about it tonight. Would I be doing the same thing? Would I be as silent as I am right now if I knew I was under attack by an inhuman force? Because let me tell you something. You are under attack by an inhuman force. It is not actually acting with humanity.
Yeah. Really.
And I don't mean for the newspapers here that there are aliens. What I'm saying is they might as well be.
Well,
It's good that you clarified that.
at least it's not reptile people. I believe that's worse. Very good.
Well, I'm just saying, whatever he had, I'm having this.
Zuckerit, doctor.
I think what he's saying is what we all feel. They are not aliens, but they are not among the humans that we are.
Mm.
And so the reaction should be the same.
Yeah.
Don't join them and put them aside. And I encourage you to say, start with the manufacturers because they are the weakest point in this chain. And they are liable and they can be gotten. When that starts, then go for the doctors and say, never ever touch this injection again. None of the mRNA injections are safe and efficient. None. They are all dangerous, all of them. And just tell your doctors, no, don't do it for your own sake. Because if you do it, you are committing a crime which is unforgivable for the rest of your lives. And one day you are going to be standing up in front of justice, and the punishment is horrible for yourself. Be afraid. Don't do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question.
Gentleman over here. Hello, I am Wilfred. I had a question for the special man, Dr. Peter McCullough. We have met last year in Phoenix. Maybe you know me. We went on the photo, but I think you are one of the men, or Martin Luther in the medical field for this time. Because you stand up, I think, it was in the United States Senate in 2020, November. He was one of the fewer physicians who stand up for the truth, for real science truth. Many were quiet, they didn't say nothing. And on that meeting, your focus was that you said there was too much on hospitalizations and advocated for aggressive early treatment at home to prevent hospitalizations and deaths. During that period, you encountered a remarkable book that added a special dimension and connected the dots with the better for science and better for the mind. Can you share in brief what you think about that book?
In brief, there appeared to be a coordinated effort from the very beginning to suppress early forms of treatment, to help those patients who are at high risk of the infection. From the very beginning. And all forms of treatment were suppressed, from very simple things like vitamins or generic medications, but also high-tech, expensive medicines produced by the pandemic response group, including monoclonal antibodies. They were suppressed. So that's an important clue. This could not have been just about money. There had to be a design to have this aim, this aspiration achieved. That is for the entire world to undergo mass vaccination. And in our book, we describe a biopharmaceutical complex, really a working cartel that has many members, the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, and Gavi, and Unitate, and Gates Foundation, and Rockefeller Foundation, and Wellcome Trust, and all the regulatory agencies. They appear to be working in a form of a lockstep. We believe the WHO is the communication center. But they wanted only one goal, and it's actually in the CEPI business plan, for global mass vaccination. Remember when Bill Gates got on national TV in April of 2020? He says this pandemic will not be brought under control until essentially every person in the world receives a vaccine. He had stated what he wanted to see happen, and now you see where Bill Gates is and the sordid connections with Jeffrey Epstein and others. It should become now apparent to you that there was a plan, and a plan that has created great harm to the world.
Greatest.
I want to I think we should not leave out what we just discovered last week in the FOIAs that came in that showed that Tony Fauci, Francis Collins, that they all sat and they looked at the data in Israel and discovered that natural immunity was stronger than the vaccine was ever going to be. And upon doing that, Paul Offit said, I sat in a group, Walensky was there, and we all discussed, should we let the public know that if they've had an infection, they have the best immunity there is? And they decided as a group, no. In fact, we will lie to them and tell them that they need to vaccinate even though they've had the infection. And now I would ask any expert on this stage, by the time this vaccine came around, all of the asymptomatic carriers, all the infections, you have to imagine the majority of the world never needed this vaccine. So to your point, this was never about stopping a disease. We can speculate all day and have a great debate on why they were going to inject everyone in this planet they could, but it had nothing to do with stopping a virus. In fact, I think the lockdowns were to try and slow the spread as much as they could. They needed a reason to inject you. That's what we should be discussing. Why were they going to inject us no matter what the outcome or whether the virus is around or not anymore? I think that is a huge question.
Absolutely, Del. And just people who may not be aware, the World Economic Forum you're aware of, and it's a subsidiary, of Rockefeller Brothers Fund and all the different groups in these cartels. But there was a meeting, I have the video, and a lady in a panel, and there were no doctors present. They weren't really talking. These are banksters. They weren't talking about health. But she said, we have to step up and admit that we failed. We wanted everyone vaccinated, and we did not achieve that goal.
Exactly.
Yeah, banksters. And then she went on to say, we need to think of something that everyone is ordinary people are interested in, and maybe something like water. Everyone knows how important water is. What if there was an issue with water? This is who we're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
Can I add something to that, Ivor? I think it's very important to stress that they wanted mandatory vaccination, but it didn't work. And
yes.
It didn't work because there were so many people who spoke out against that. So that shows us that our voice has an effect. That we have power. Yes. And it was strangely enough exactly the same in the Second World War. And Denmark was the only place where the Nazis met real vocal resistance. And they immediately changed their mind. They stopped their project there. So it's extremely important to realize that. Totalitarianism is a psychological process. And if there are some people, a certain percentage, can be a small percentage of the people who continues to speak out, it won't work.
Yeah. Gentlemen, last question here over for this lady.
Hi, my name is Mitzi. I had a question. I was wondering, because there are a lot of us who didn't take the vaccine, but through shading and also through food, I heard that the mRNA is in there.
Shedding,
I'm sorry. So does this mean that at the end, all the people will have the mRNA in their bodies?
I really hesitate to go into the question of shedding because we can't deal with that in 5 minutes. And I would like to come back to the question that we're dealing with right now, which is, why was this vaccination program so important to the network? And my answer is this. Listen, fear has been used to control. The rulers have controlled the populace with fear. Whipping, executions, prison, everything you want. And now they have discovered medicine and science as an instrument to instill fear. And infections, I'm sorry to say, my own field has been used to this purpose. Because here's an enemy that you cannot see, you cannot hear, you cannot smell. You can only die without knowing that you're going to die. Your children, everyone. And someone up there, the greatest scientists in the world, have given you the one weapon with which you can conquer this agent. And that's the vaccine. Okay? And that's why the people in the world who listen to science and believe in science, they believe in the doctors, they believe in scientists. They may not believe the politicians, but they do believe the scientists. And this was the most brilliant move that they made. They engaged the scientists. And then they had the WHO and the control over the government. And what they are now doing is they are moving. The next move is to give the WHO the power to decide what has to be done when the WHO decides there is a danger for the world populace or the nation's populace. And the answer will always be the vaccine. We have a vaccine against malaria, they already have it. We have a vaccine against HIV, it's in the drawer. Everyone knows this. It's just waiting for the WHO to get this signature from all these countries.
Sushrit, you have to speed up a little bit.
Yeah, and
we give you the last words.
Yes. You see, the brilliant thing about this is that who is paying for these vaccines? The governments are paying because they have to pay. And with which money are they paying? With your money. It's your money. So they're getting the world population to have the money flow from the bottom to the top, kill themselves at the same time, and all is well.
Final words, Del?
I just want to tie her question in with what he's just said. And, you know, simply put, in my investigation now, the one thing that I know that they are trying to achieve is a mandated vaccine program. The idea was to get us to all have a vaccine passport. That was the goal. That's what they said. We were all going to have to get onto a plane to do anything in life. And if you want to know why, this may be a simpler version. There's other things on top of this. But I believe when they keep saying to you that the number one goal by Bill Gates, the number one goal of the WEF is to reduce the population, that there's too many of us. We are a disease on this planet. That is how the governments of the world now see human beings. This is our move from God. You either believe you're created in the image and likeness of God, or if you want their religion, you are a bacteria disease that is killing this planet. That is how they see it. Their idea is to control your population. I'm not saying this vaccine was designed to kill you. It was designed to get you used to being vaccinated so they could track you. There is no better delivery system. So don't worry about chemtrails in the sky. I don't think they want to poison themselves that bad. They're not going to use things that hit all of us. They want to target the people. They want to take out the poor people. They want to take out a race. They want to take out people that are, distracting or against the government. And the best delivery system will always be a vaccine program where we just walk in, they inject us with whatever we want, we show them our phone, it has all of our social credit data, they know who we are, and I'm not getting the same vaccines as Peter is because he's an upstanding citizen, he's a doctor, and I'm a loudmouth asshole, and I should not be procreating. That's at least a part of what was going on.
Absolutely, and by the way, just a spoiler, so the vaccine passport was for universal digital ID, which was primarily for central bank programmable currency, CBDC, which is the most powerful control tool ever dreamed up on this planet, I think. My thoughts. What an amazing panel.
We have to move on to the second panel. A great applause.
Science.
And I also want a warm applause for Ivor Cummins. What a great guy. I've seen so many videos of him, and it inspired me. It gave me food for thoughts all the time when I needed it.
Thank you. It was a labor of love the last 5 years, honestly.
And now it seems like he's just a normal human.
I'm quite a nice human, actually.
Yeah. We're moving on to the second episode of this evening, the international episode. And that's about the topic that we actually already addressed a little bit. Because we've talked about vaccines, mostly in terms of the mRNA vaccines. But I do have 2 kids, a son of 22, 23 in the meantime, and a young boy of 12. And they all got the normal public health vaccinations that we used to give any child. Same with me, my brother. We just, without thinking, we just go to this health office and we inject our kids because that's what we do. But the question that rises more and more is, do safe and effective vaccines in general exist? And is there any proof for that? Well, I interviewed Del Bigtree this afternoon, and we're going to broadcast this interview later this year on Lighthouse TV. And we had a very interesting conversation about this topic because he's a specialist, an expert on this topic, and he's doing this for years. And the answer is actually there is no scientific evidence that it's safe and effective. That's what he's saying. I'm not the expert. And that's the topic that we're going to discuss now. And we're going to watch the trailer of his latest documentary, An Inconvenient Study. And it's painful to see what happens if you invite real scientists to investigate this simple question, to rule out any doubt, and just give me the data, prove that this vaccine is safe and effective. And, well, let's watch what happened.
The health of American children is in crisis.
When we're talking about an autoimmune disease crisis, shouldn't we look closest at the one product designed to alter our immune system for life? There'd be one easy study to rule it out. Compare vaccinated children to unvaccinated children.
As fate would have it, Del met Marcus Servos.
He agreed to do the study.
This could be one of the most valuable studies in the field.
4.47 times the amount of speech disorders.
Learning issues, developmental delays.
Over 4 times more likely to have an asthma diagnosis.
5.5 times risk. Amongst the unvaccinated group, there were 0.
If this is true, we are systematically making kids sick, very sick.
Only one problem. They're not going to publish it. They left us with no choice. I'm going to bring hidden cameras so that no matter what happens at this dinner, I can prove it happened.
What do you think about the study you guys have done?
Well, I think it's a good study.
Is there a way they could do the study better?
Not that I put it out just how it is. It's the right thing to do, but I just don't want to. Somebody's going to come back and they're going to say the study is flawed.
The unpublished Henry Ford analysis is fundamentally flawed.
Because there's a political agenda to it. I'm not going to do it. Publishing something like that, might as well retire. I'd be finished.
Sick. It's really sick.
I mean, honestly, really emotional.
This is an inconvenient study for the entire vaccine agenda.
Another fantastic panel, and first up with the man himself, Del Bigtree. Of course, Dr. Peter McCullough. And Professor Dr. Alexandra Code and Professor Dr. Sukarat Bhakti again. And we've got Martin Hadich, Professor Dr. Angus Dalgleish, Dr. Heiko Schoening, and Professor Dr. Theo Scheffers. Okay, time is limited, so we'll move quickly into the introductory question, but everyone here is going to have a lot of opinions here. So, interestingly, actually, I got all my vaccines for corporate business trips to China, and I never even asked the doctor what they were around 2016 or 17, and our kids, sadly, got quite a few as well. After I looked into the matter, I'd never touch them again, personally. Most citizens, though, are still convinced that the vaccine class of drugs is scientifically proven to be safe and effective. What is the truth on this, the scientific data that supports that conceit or that assumption? And I guess, Del, you might go first.
Well, I mean, how many people have seen an inconvenient study, just so I know who we're talking to? All right, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Look, my nonprofit, the Informed Consent Action Network, has sued the government of the United States and proved unequivocally there has never been a single placebo-based randomized controlled trial, or what was it you describing what we should really call this?
Non-inferiority.
A non-inferiority study. It's never been done of any of the childhood vaccines, which means it has skipped the gold standard of all studies that should happen to a pharmaceutical product to establish safety. They don't know if they're safe. So to correct something, I haven't proved that they're not safe and effective. I've focused on one word as a journalist: safety. And since 2016, I've been investigating this. There is no safety established. So what you are doing is injecting your children with toxic poisons, and they're making you worry about issues that are so incredibly rare. 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000, 1 in a million chances. They're making you worry about being struck by lightning, and essentially they're telling you it will be 100% effective if you lock yourself in your house the rest of your life. Okay, that's true, but your risk isn't high enough to be doing that, and that's what you're doing with this vaccine program. Meanwhile, when you look at the health of our children in America, more than 54% of them have chronic disease. That's what this study showed. I didn't do it. A pro-vaccine scientist did it. That's what makes this study so important. And if you just look at autism and all of the amazing work, Peter McCullough has come after years of me investigating this, is now really doing the best research that's ever been on autism. Autism in America is now about 1 in 30. It's 1 in 12.5 boys in California. That's the highest rate we're seeing anywhere. That at 1 in 12.5, that erases. What he is proving is that the vaccines are the major cause of that. So the greatest risk in this world, the only thing you should be worried about now is autism, because you are injecting something that is putting your kid in a 1 in 30 risk to stop 1 in 10,000 risks. Don't be that stupid. Say no now completely.
Yes!
Yeah. I wonder, would Professor Dr. Theo go against you on that? What do we think?
No, not necessarily. But on the question in general, whether there are safe and effective vaccines, yes, there are safe and effective vaccines, but only after they've done the right experiments, have shown the safety, have shown the efficacy, and when have got the, were granted by the EMA and the FDA that they were safe and effective. And that is something that has not happened. And I worked for 40 years in vaccine development in animals, and there we did it. With animals, we were better than with humans. We did proper placebo-controlled studies to show safety and efficacy. And I can also tell you, we had formulations that didn't meet the criteria. So there are also vaccine formulations that were not safe, but these never passed the tests. And that's the problem here, especially with the corona vaccines. They didn't do anything. They asked me, did they cut corners? Yes, they cut every corner they could find.
So, let me just clarify.
Yeah, I want to add up
the best tested vaccine in the world is the coronavirus vaccine. Yeah. No childhood vaccine got that level of testing, and you saw how bad that is.
Yeah, and to add up on that, the mRNA vaccines, for 20 years, they had never, ever reached beyond phase 1 or phase 2 of clinical trials.
Yeah.
That's how safe and effective they were. They didn't even go and reach the phase 3 of the clinical trials, and that's when they ejected 70% of the population.
Yeah.
And that quasi-competent vaccine trial, more people died in the vaccine arm. Just saying. Okay, Martin Hadich, any thoughts on this thorny topic?
Well, it's really a challenge to put this into a few minutes. I think the world is not black and white, and it's not only the good or only the bad. And to enter this topic, I think we should be aware that we are trying to head for evidence-based medicine, and this is what we always try to reach. But you should keep in mind that, and we've seen it exactly during the COVID era, that we have others. Name it, it's not only evidence-based medicine, but it's eminence-based medicine, which means somebody stands up who is an expert and says, that's the right way to go. And if he's famous for his work in vaccines, everybody says, if he says it, and he's the eminence, then it will be right. You see? And this was one of those bad clues. The second thing you should also keep in mind is that you have evidence-biased medicine. So you have a fixed goal where you're going to, you have something what you want to achieve, and then you select the population to achieve this goal. And there is one very recent example for that. I don't know, I mean, the panel knows about it, but maybe you don't know about it, that there was now published a paper, a French scientific group published a paper on the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccine. By the way, I don't call it vaccine, I call it spiking substance because it is no vaccine. And as long as these experts and many of the people call it vaccines, you cannot make the difference in the population. They will always say it's the same thing. It is not the same thing. It's wholly different. But there was now this published paper, and it showed that the survival rate in those vaccinated is, I think, some 24% higher than in those who were not vaccinated. But the trick was, they started to count the deaths in the vaccinated, in the so-called vaccinated, only 6 months after they got the shot. And so by these means, they excluded exactly the period where most of the people died after the shot. You see, this was the trick. And so you have to go to the raw data. But on the basic question of traditional vaccines, we know, and this is, I fear that, I'm very sorry that now Matthias is not on stage, because he could maybe have proven what I'm saying now, but maybe he is willing to answer it later on. You always have a level of disease with no vaccine, if it's an infectious disease. And then people fear the disease. And if there is a vaccine, I mean a classical vaccine, you will have the vaccine rate going up, and you will have the disease going down. I must admit, we all know that the infectious diseases during the 20th century already were on the descent. They were decreasing before vaccines were introduced. This is very important to know.
Yep. Thank you, Martin.
But just one more minute. But under the bottom line, they wouldn't have decreased to near zero. And I just can tell you, for instance, in the pre-vaccination era, we had some 700 cases of tick-borne encephalitis in Austria. And in the neighboring Czech Republic, it was the same. And then Austria started to vaccinate against tick-borne encephalitis, and we dropped to some 100 cases. Although the endemic area increased, but we were able to bring it down. And I think it was not only lifestyle or whatever, it was also the vaccine. But you see, the disease goes down, vaccine goes up. And then you have a crossing point. And the more you use a vaccine, the more likely is it that you see adverse events. You see? And then you have some point where there are maybe only adverse events and no more disease. Like, for instance, is now in our region with diphtheria. You don't see diphtheria anymore, but you could, of course, allocate adverse events to it. So then it's the hesitancy, and the vaccination rate drops. And as we see now, maybe it could be the vaccination, it could be not, the hesitancy, the disease goes up again, while the number of vaccinated decrease. And frankly spoken, I think it's very important that if you say diseases are rare, you should always take as the basic number, the denominator, those only who are not immune. Because this is the correct denominator, those who are not vaccinated or those who are not naturally immune. This is the comparison, that's important.
Yeah. Thank you. And Angus, I saw you react there.
Yeah, I would really like to draw your attention to something that Peter has written a brilliant book with John Leake on vaccines, and there's another one by Aaron Siri on the fact that vaccines is basically a religion. And I think the most important date with vaccines is actually 1986, because that's in America when they passed an act to take liability away from all the companies making vaccines. Now, why did they do that? Because the vaccine companies said, we really can't afford to make these vaccines. We have to pay out so much in compensation that unless we get rid of liability, it's not worth our while. Well, they did it. So what happens if you remove liability? There are now, to my horror, I only recently discovered this, but there are now 72, and it's probably going higher, vaccines you can have in America by the time you're a teenager. It's gone up exponentially, and it goes with a graph that autism goes up exactly the same. Now, that doesn't mean to say it's necessarily caused, but my God, you've got to stop and think, why are you doing this? And the other horrifying thing I found out is that babies in America get hepatitis B vaccine on the day they're born. Only about 400 babies in the entire America of 3.5 million people vaccinated are ever going to get that disease. So you're exposing 3.5 million people, babies, even worse, for possibly 400. When we're talking about risk-benefit, I think this really puts it in concept.
Yeah. Absolutely insane. And the conversation naturally trips to yourself now, Peter, and I'll get back to some of the other guys on your book and the fundamentals.
The book is Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality, and it's a fast-moving narrative. It's extremely well written by a best-selling author, John Leake, about the history of vaccines and how it was really driven by population fear of infectious diseases, bold claims made by vaccine developers, and then ultimately in many circumstances, vaccination that was forced on the population. So what happened at the end of the 19th century with smallpox vaccination, where people were put in jail if they didn't take the vaccine, is not too far away from what happened with the COVID-19 vaccine. So history doesn't repeat itself, it tends to rhyme. Importantly, the infectious diseases of those prior centuries, all of them came under control due to improved sanitation, nutrition, hygiene, and then screening, detection, and treatment. So illnesses like scarlet fever, rheumatic fever, various forms of bacterial dysentery, they all came under control without vaccines. This is very important. Vaccines are given credit as one of the greatest accomplishments of public health, but in fact it was these other factors mentioned. So the vaccine industry has ridden on this myth that vaccines are the savior of humanity. And by the way, it's not just humans, but also animals, that vaccines are the savior of veterinary medicine. It's the same hubris playing out.
Yep, it's a charlatan's playground, I'm afraid to say, in my opinion. Heiko, I want to get everyone to have a voice. Dr. Heiko.
Yeah. So if the question is, are there any safe and effective vaccines? The answer is not complicated, and it's short, no. Why? I give only two reasons. First, the filling station of these glass bottles are run partly by criminals. So it's a lottery. It's criminals who are filling up. So the science before doesn't matter if the filling station is run partly by criminals. Second, we have scientific evidence, and it's mounted on paper in a book. It's called Vaccinated Death. It's made by a pathologist, by Professor Arne Burkhardt, Professor Walter Lang, and Dr. Ute Krüger. And this was out of our club with, we are 3 founding members, Sucharit, Martin, and me, and others. So in a German scientific club. So we have this evidence in this book, Vaccinated Death. We translated this into 3 languages, German, Swedish, and English, and you can look it up. So we have the scientific evidence that the COVID-19 vaccine were partly deadly. Yeah? You have this. Okay. So first, my research specialty is organized crime in the healthcare sector. Okay. So what I did, I followed up anthrax attacks in 2001, and there was a company, Emergent Biosolutions, American company. And this is a mafia organization. Yeah? It's a mafia thing. I saying this since years, they never sued me. Well, yeah? And guess what? Emergent Biosolutions was the early producer of most of the COVID-19 vaccine, and it's organized crime behind. So the answer is to the question, safe and effective, no, because you're dealing with organized crime, with criminals. So you can't be sure. Don't need to be an expert in science or microbiology, immunology. So no, nothing. It's criminals, so the answer is no. I will not give it to my children and not to my beloved ones. And I think you too.
It's hard to disagree with that. Sucharit, I don't think you've had a moment.
Well, let me tell you that I was just a classical school medical. And I wrote a book with my wife 10 years ago where, in general, we were in favor of about half of the vaccines that are being given in Germany. Now, then came COVID, and I started thinking, you made a mistake about the COVID vaccines. I didn't make a mistake. I knew that they were bad. And then I started reading up on vaccines. And within these 5 years, I started studying the literature, and I came up with the same results that you just heard. And so we rewrote that book, and that rewritten book appeared 6 months ago. You can look it up. It's Understanding Infections and Not Fearing Them, okay, in German. And we took all the vaccines and analyzed them because there are 3 columns on which an authorization and recommendation of vaccine must stand. The first is necessity, the second is efficacy, and the third is safety. And if one of these columns is not existent, the whole recommendation must fall. Now, necessity means, are we dealing with a highly dangerous infection? Is it killing enough people to warrant the introduction of something that has risk? Because anything that is foreign to the body carries risk. Anyone who doesn't understand this, I can't talk to. But you have to assess this. And as Dell said in his passionate, as he always is, this has never been shown that the benefit is greater than the risk. In contrast, and that's what Peter says, it is now known that the risk of vaccinations against the normal vaccine, when I'm talking about COVID, COVID is out. The others, all the others, and we put this in our book, and our recommendation is, do try to read the book, okay? I mean, it's not very long on the vaccines. not as long as John's and Peter's. And not as so researched, but the essence is there, and the essence is saying exactly the same thing, exactly. Now, the one last thing I want to say, and then I'm going to close, is yes, there are vaccines that are safe and efficacious, but they are not the classical ones. These are passive vaccines, antibodies that are given in the case of two diseases, which is tetanus and rabies. Tetanus and rabies. And I stand to this because these are two diseases where the lethality is so high that you really are thankful for every person that you save. And you can save them with these antibodies. It's not the active toxin. I am not recommending the active toxins. I'm recommending the passive toxins, okay? That's the end of the story, and that's also in the book.
Thank you, Sucharit Bhakti. Okay. It's time for Q&A, and we have something to watch.
This is the battle for science.
Question from the gentleman over here.
Hello, you all. Thank you so much for your contribution. I don't think that anything you have said here tonight is against the general consensus about vaccines and everything that comes with it, and the distrust that the general audience in this place has against overall, call it medicine. Right? Am I right? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Just testing. So the next, what we have discussed, I mean, what I've heard a lot is about what was and probably what still is, right? So again, we have discussed a baseline of a situation that we all feel. Some of you are really experts, some of us are intuitive about it, but we have a general sense of something is deeply, deeply wrong, and that's the baseline, and I think everyone agrees with that. My question is actually twofold, and I'm asking all of you and also former panel members as well. Purpose. Yeah, we can say, okay, it's money-driven, you know, the typical conspiracy type of thing. There are a couple of leading companies out there, and they just want us to be slaves in the matrix, and we can come up with all those type of things. I would really love to hear what you think about purpose of all of this big scheme behind it, first, second. And then the unwanted consequences, because many people, well, the majority of us, I think, are not necessarily jabbed. I'm not. And but the other, the consequence that hasn't been taken into consideration is that demographically, a lot of people who immigrated to Europe for religious reasons or for, fear of authority, general fear of authority, didn't vaccinate themselves. So are we faced also with a demographic change? And some people in our domain call it omvolking, which is a Dutch word that we cannot talk about it. But that's I see that as a kind of consequence. Would you see it similarly, or do you see it differently?
Get to the point. What is your question?
I got the question.
Is it clear to you?
I understand the question.
Is it clear?
It's clear to me. And I think that we could sit, and one of the interesting things about being with all these brilliant minds, by the way, one of the greatest lineups of experts and geniuses anywhere in the world. Very impressive. We are making a mistake when we say this is being caused by greed. We are making a mistake when we say this is being caused by evil in the cartoon version of what evil is, as though there's a Dr. Evil in a James Bond movie that has some supernatural powers, that they're all organized into a plan. They've planned all of this, and they're outsmarting us, and they're ahead of us in this game. That is demoralizing you. It is making you terrified, and it is creating an insurmountable enemy. When the truth is your enemy is people that are trying to be good. I know this may be crazy. I believe Bill Gates is trying to save our species. I think he is not the evil that you think he is, that you want to say that he is. He is just a human being that truly believes that if we follow him, if we let him block out the sun, we will reduce global warming. If we let him have vaccine programs, we will get the population to where it needs to be so that we don't overuse our resources. He is being God. The problem is not that he's evil in the sense that he's a cartoon. He has lost all sight of a creator or anything bigger than himself. And so that is by definition evil. He thinks he's God, and therefore there is no God in his world, and it is those types of people that are now running our entire planet. They have no concept of God. So, what we are dealing with now is the most powerful religion.
Okay.
The CIA is already in you. They do this to me all the time.
Something weird is happening here. They're trying to silence you.
It's true. This is a religion that has taken over the world, is what has happened. And it has an original sin. It believes that you are not created in the image and likeness of God, as we are told in the very first story ever told. You are a bacteria. You are a disease. Your baby is diseased and must be injected with man-made products in order for us to all be safe with each other. When we are told in the Garden of Eden, just do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, never believe that you're God. Never believe that you understand the good and evil of viruses, of bacteria. You have millions of them teeming on your hands right now as we speak. Since the dawn of man, they have never killed us. They have never wiped out our species. Inside of your stomach, millions of bacteria and viruses. Never believe that you can kill one virus in your stomach or the 16 they're killing with our vaccine program and not throw this entire delicate balance out of whack. We have been so perfectly and divinely designed, yet we are letting men, we are letting doctors play God. They want that power. They don't want to let it go. It is not that they are evil. They think they're doing good, but now it is a coin toss if our kids are going to be chronically diseased their entire life. We've replaced a week or two with measles with chronic autism, mental disorders, autoimmune disease, infections and skin allergies that are all over us for our entire lives. We are the sickest we have ever been because doctors are playing God. It is not that they are evil, it is that they have forgotten God should be in charge.
Del Bitry. A question from this lady over here.
Hello, Del. Hello, Del. We met each other in Ischia.
Yes, okay, good to see you.
Yes. I have a question for you, and maybe for even all of the audience, because it's not an easy question.
It'll take a while to answer.
So, I will start with who I am. I have a son. I'm a single mom. I have a son with Down syndrome, and who has autism, but has a profound knowledge about creation. Me, myself, I call myself a self-proclaimed victor of satanic child abuse. So I know how they think, and they are ruling the world in their way, and they are spreading it all over the world. I want to place my question into context. We live on this moment in the Great Reset, and they see the vaccines and money as a way to compliance with their goal. What worries me the last 5 years is that I see people react and I see people compete. Reaction means you're always one step behind. Competition means, in their terms, divide and conquer. But there is a third solution, and that is creation. When we create, we are miles ahead of them. And we can turn the Great Reset to our profit. What's my question?
The CIA is here. Del is right.
It is a cyber. I did not want her to ask a question.
Okay, is it working? No, it's not.
Meanwhile, I will just add up something. You said that vaccine were like a religion, but religion you are free.
Thank you.
For vaccinism, you are not free. So it's a totalitarian of vaccination. Sorry about that.
So my question is, did you ever consider to create a new health insurance system based on science, independent from big pharma and from government?
I think that Peter and I both have two different approaches to this going on. I'll let you speak. I am working on a totally holistic health system using media. I'm building the hub right now. It'll be called Wisdom. And the idea being that we want to know what is chiropractic, what is homeopathy, what is acupuncture, what is massage, what is nutrition. I want to use what I've done in media now to have a space where you can be educated and then find those practitioners near you, but using your own innate wisdom to find what you need for your health, not only to get healthy, but to also stay healthy. So that is what I am working on right now. And at the end of this, as we build communities that are no longer going to doctors, and especially drug-driving doctors, there are great doctors that will put you back together if you've been in a car accident. But where medicine and mainstream medicine should never have gone, allopathic medicine does not know how to make you healthy. It does not know how to keep you healthy. It only knows how to deal with you once you're sick, in pain. We need to have a system that keeps us, as long as we can, away from needing those doctors. So yes, I think that is the future.
What Del's talking about is an approach that is improving health and managing things at home so you don't have to go to the doctor or the hospital. When I went to India, over a decade ago, someone came up to me and presented a sick patient, an elderly patient. And I said, well, where are you in this, managing this situation? They said, well, we're at the level of home-based care, meaning they're managing it at home, and when it becomes unmanageable, then it'll be escalated to the level of seeing a doctor. Doctors don't make patients healthier than what they are at baseline. What we are asked to do is we're asked to solve problems, serious problems. And as a doctor, I spend every day handling serious problems that if I didn't handle, that patient's life could be cut short or be disabled. It's a very noble profession. It's an honorable profession, but it's a problem-based profession. What's needed now is to improve the health of the population, reduce the fear. We are not susceptible to infectious diseases as we've been in the past. This area of medicine, of vaccines, in my view, has been a 300-year developing religion. It's not based on science. It doesn't have solid scientific underpinnings. It's not constantly refining and reevaluating. Virtually every drug I use as a doctor today wasn't even available when I was a medical student because medicines are continually refined and improved. Vaccines, some of the vaccines being used have not changed since the 1940s, 50s, or 60s.
Okay, thank you. I got to call it there. My Secret Service earpiece tells me we're done. Just one last little quick thing, Del, you might like. Bill Gates' father, Bill Gates Sr., was senior counsel for the Rockefeller family, and he was up to his neck in Planned Parenthood. So I suspect young Billy was a made man. But he might be a good guy. What an amazing panel.
I just want to say one thing because, first of all...
Final words.
Final word is this. If you think that we are overpowered or you think that we can't change, what is happening on this stage in front of you was impossible just 10 years ago. When I released Vax, There's not a doctor that would say what Peter just said, or any of these experts, virologists that are now admitting we didn't do proper safety, we didn't do these things. We need to get back to what science is, which is the scientific method. The world is moving so fast and is changing so beautifully in our direction simply because people like me made movies. Robert Kennedy spoke out, and scientists that were courageous enough started asking the right questions again. And in America, we're in a whole different world with Robert Kennedy as HHS Secretary. You too must change your world. You must believe you can do it. That's all I've done. That belief is so inspiring today to see this table and who we are sitting amongst. Anything is possible, and it's being made clear.
We got him on the ropes. Thank you.
This is the battle for science.
Okay. It seems to end.
May I just...
It's making sure you don't forget someone. Like yesterday, I nearly forgot one person at the end. That's
Can I have a big applause? Also, Matthias Desmet, Jonathan, Wiebeke, Maarten, Astrid, Laura, if John Leake is here, also welcome on stage. Maurice de Hond. Gerry van der Laan. Great job. Ivor Cummins. I want to say something. I'm holding something in my hands that is, I think, not to be arrogant, but historical when I finish my story. Because what we are doing here together is actually celebrating our heroes. And yes, applause. And when I say heroes, I don't mean that we depend on them, because we have to be autonomous and we have to be strong individuals solving our own problems. But we can be inspired by courageous people like them that set an example for us and to follow their instincts. And I think that we have to leave the idea that we are the fringe minority. That's not the case. We are the majority. It's just that most of those people that are still driving around in their lease cars, having the safe job, didn't find the moment to get out of their safe position. But a lot of people are in their head already there. And we have to know that also during the Corona time, we thought we were alone, but we weren't. There were so many people that felt the same. Del said that. It's maybe over 50% already worldwide. So it's time for us to stand up and to show that we are there, to speak out, and also to celebrate our success, because we are the winning team. For sure. And these people are just symbolic.